So what is? I mean, I know what a blood clot is, but like, what is a blood clot? Like, you just like, how did it like start? Like, do you just walk in and all of a sudden there's big pain in your leg, or like, how does? I have no idea, honestly.
My immune system gets confused and it attacks healthy parts of my body, the liver, the kidneys, lungs, whatever it decides at that time, because lupus is just all over the place. It took a good 2 to 3 years for them to diagnose me with lupus. They kept saying I was too young. They said that it was arthritis. They said it was carpal tunnel, and it's what started here ended up going to my fingers. There's no cookie cutter version of lupus. It's just everyone, like, what my symptoms could be different from someone else who has lupus as well. So
Yeah. So you say that. Yeah. So you mentioned before that you were in a wheelchair and you lost like 60 pounds and lost all weight. So how did you get out of the flare then? Did the body just stop attacking you, or did you have to do something?
in having flare-ups, and I was extremely stressed. I was going through a divorce. Like you mentioned, I was in a domestic violence situation with my ex-husband, and he was just not a good person. So my stress level was here, and it should have been down here.
Like, it's difficult when you deal with chronic illness because like your life is still going on, and you don't want to worry about your health all the time. So you rather have a
Right.
more consistent health and know what your limits are versus just fighting your body
Right.
like up and down. Like, you rather have a consistent, maybe lower baseline, but if it's consistent, it's more workable.
Yeah.
But do you know
Yeah.
why they choose the color purple?
I do not. I do not know that.
Oh, well, I do because I did a lot of research. So the color purple, they say, is the combination of red, which signifies motivation, and blue, which signifies calmness.
A domestic violence situation, it's like, well, why would they put themselves in that situation? Why did they deal with that? Instead of saying, you know what, maybe they need help, it's always judgment first. So,
Hello, welcome to my podcast, Mics One JoeySooch. I am Joe Sooch, and I'll be giving a mic to Rosadela Dorothy.
yeah, you got it.
Yes. She currently has lupus, SLE. SLE is an autoimmune disease in which the immune system attacks its own tissue, causing widespread inflammation and tissue damage in the affected organs. It can affect the joints, skin, brain, lungs, kidney, and blood vessel. She's also a domestic violence survivor while raising 3 boys. How are you today?
Wow, thanks for that intro. I'm doing really good, thank you. Just, trying to get the word out about lupus, because it is something that is called an invisible disease. So if you were to pass me in the street, you wouldn't have any idea of some of the treatments that I have undergone or currently undergo. So I'm just glad to be here.
So I want to say first thing first, do you need a hug?
Yes, I always need a hug. Just 2 weeks ago, my father did pass away from cancer. So we knew he had cancer, but we were he beat it once, and we were under the impression he would beat it again. But sadly, that was not the case.
I mean, you have so much going on in your life that we're gonna get involved in right now. So I want to tell how amazing this woman is. Not only does she have what I mentioned before, but it's a long list. So here we go. She has hyperthyroidism, asthma, diminished lung capacity, thyroid mass, neuropathy, renal disease, anemia, high blood pressure, insomnia, and arthritis. Undergone a kidney biopsy, surgery to remove half her thyroid, chemotherapy treatment twice for a total of 6 months, nerve testing, and yearly lung function tests. Rosadela also had an invasive right heart cath procedure done that results in getting a blood clot near her lungs. Have both pneumonia and shingles multiple times. Experienced hair loss, tooth decay, skin rashes, skin ulcers on multiple body parts, multiple hospitalization, depression, and muscle loss that results in being wheelchair bound for a number of weeks. She had to go through physical therapy to teach herself to walk again. she had been told by doctors that her body is shutting down, and yet still, by some miracle, she's still here to raise her 3 children.
Yeah, that's all true. Wow, you really did your research, Joey. I have been up and down with the treatments, and right now, I mean, I'm doing well. I could say that I don't have any immediate concerns. I do take like 6. I have daily. My medication is about. It ranges because I take 6 medications daily, and then I take my vitamins just to try to keep my immune system level. And I do weekly injections. I self-inject Benlysta. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's like an autoimmune medication, and it's just if I get like right now I'm starting to get sniffles, and that I have to be careful because that could turn into pneumonia really quick for me. I get pneumonia very easily. So these are things
But let's go back in time a little bit. So out
yeah.
of all the things that I listed, which one would you never want to experience again?
Probably the blood clot in my lungs. That was the scariest. I was hospitalized for a few days, and then just the recovery from that was ongoing and long, and just hard to deal with.
So what is? I mean, I know what a blood clot is, but like, what is a blood clot? Like, you just like, how did it like start? Like, do you just walk in and all of a sudden there's big pain in your leg, or like, how does? I have no idea, honestly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so how this all came about was because I have every time you go to the doctor, they check your blood pressure, and every visit it was extremely high blood pressure. It'd be like 180 over 100 or something, some crazy number. And so they wanted to do a procedure where they wanted to see why my heart was always like rapidly beating. So it's called a right heart cath procedure. They take a needle and they stick the needle right here into your chest, and it takes a small little like really thin like a string kind of thread, and they thread it all the way down into your chest, and the thing it's supposed to do is supposed to circle your heart so it can monitor your heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
So they did that, and about a couple weeks later, I started feeling like really sick. I thought I was having a lupus flare up, and I was getting fevers, and then I started feeling weak, and then I noticed where they did the procedure, it started swelling up, and I thought I didn't put the two together, and then it got to the point where my neck was so swollen you couldn't even see my collarbone, and it was inflamed, like all red. So I went to the emergency room because I had a fever still, and they did a ultrasound, and I had right here traveling to my lungs was a blood clot. So if you ever get a blood clot and it gets to your heart, that can stop your heart. So they immediately admitted me, and I was given blood thinners, and they had to monitor me to make sure that the blood clot went away, and they check it with ultrasounds.
So I'm guessing they removed the thing out of your body that you had inserted, and then all that you can do is take medicine to remove the blood clot?
Yeah, so the day that I had the procedure, they just do that for like 30 minutes just to monitor you. Then they take it out, and then just what I was told after I got the blood clot is it was caused because the body invasion, foreign object is what they said. So, and that was the only thing that I've had recently, well, at that time recently done. So.
Was this at all connected with your wheelchair experience, or no?
No, sadly, that was a whole other that resulted from I had a flare up I started when I get flare-ups. It's when your immune system goes into hyper mode. What's supposed to be taking care of your body, like your immune system is supposed to battle any bad diseases, or like when you start getting a cold, your immune system kicks in. But for me, my immune system gets confused and it attacks healthy parts of my body, by the liver, the kidneys, lungs, whatever it decides at that time, because lupus is just all over the place. And so for me, I started having a flare up, and it started attacking first my joints, and then I started getting weak, and then I started getting like my jaw was locked, so I couldn't open my mouth to eat properly. I was getting sores in my mouth. They call them like ulcers. And I wasn't eating. I lost so much weight. I'm 5'9" in height, and a healthy weight for me is like 160, 170. I had got down to almost like 110 pounds.
Wow.
So yeah, so I was just so weak, and then my nerves and my muscles just weakened to the point that I couldn't even lift myself out of the bed, or I couldn't walk. If I tried to walk, I'd fall. So I was in a wheelchair for about a good month. And then when I started recovering from that, I did have to go. I was, I guess you could say, permanently clumsy, because I had to do physical therapy all over. I couldn't even, like some people can jump from the step to the curb or something. I couldn't do that. I had to like retrain my body to do everything.
So let's go talk about your lupus diagnosis, because I feel like that's the big thing that you face often. So
Yeah.
it says that I have that you were diagnosed at the age of 23. It says you were having severe joint pain. Was the
Yeah.
joint pain sudden, or did it build up over time, or how was your diagnosis?
It built up over time. It started here in my wrist, where I would go to the doctor, and I'm like, I think because I was a graphic designer, so I used to use my hands a lot on the computer. So doctors were saying I have carpal tunnel, so they'd give me like a naproxen for that pain, which that didn't do anything. And it took a good 2 to 3 years for them to diagnose me with lupus. They kept saying I was too young. They said that it was arthritis. They said it was carpal tunnel, and it's what started here ended up going to my fingers, where I couldn't do this. I couldn't lift my arms to even like put my hair up. I couldn't do that. And then when it started getting to my hips, to the point where I couldn't get out of bed without someone like physically helping me up, then that's when I asked, because my uncle, he had lupus. So I said, you know what, can you test me for lupus? And then that's when they were able to confirm it.
So he's just your uncle, so he's not really, I mean, he's related to you, but he's like not in your family chain. So how did it go from your uncle to you? Like, so it must have skipped a generation?
Yeah, so lupus is not, sadly, it's not really researched. That never got a lot of funding. So lupus is something that doctors are still kind of in the dark about. They don't know too much. Like, they can't say if it's hereditary. They can't say if it's because a family member somewhere down the line had it. The only thing that is certain about lupus is that it's more dominant in women, and it's mostly seen in women of color, with like Black, Mexican, or Hispanic, Indian women. And I happen to be all of the check marks on there. My parents are Latino. I'm a woman, and it just the age from when people can be diagnosed is early adolescence. I've seen 8-year-olds diagnosed with lupus all the way up to 50, 60-year-olds. So it's just all over the place. You can't pinpoint. There's no cookie cutter version of lupus. It's just everyone, like what my symptoms could be different from someone else who has lupus as well. So
you say that your family, that you can't look back at your family of lupus, but how about going forward? So I know you have 3 kids. Do they have lupus, or are they carriers of lupus?
I'm not even sure. I've asked because that's been a concern for me, but they just say you can't see anything unless they start showing symptoms, which would be like the pains, or like they call it a butterfly rash, where you get a rash from here, like it looks like a butterfly basically on your face. And so it's sad, but you kind of just have to wait.
So you're saying that there's no DNA test of any sort to find out if you have lupus?
Correct.
It's only just symptoms based.
Yeah.
So I want to say that it's super annoying, not really for lupus, but for many diseases, that it is inconsistent. So 2 people can have the same disease and have similar symptoms. Let me go through the symptoms for the audience: muscle and joint pain, fever, rashes, chest pain, hair loss, sun or light sensitivity, kidney problems, mouth sores, extreme fatigue, anemia, memory problems, blood clotting, or eye disease. Like, those symptoms are clear, but they could be so many other diseases. So, like, how do you know you have lupus versus, like, so many other diseases that's so many symptoms?
Yeah, I mean, there's been cases where I hear people who have symptoms almost identical to mine, but then they find out it's actually like fibromyalgia or something, some other. So it's just it's a matter of getting to a doctor. Hopefully they refer you to a rheumatologist. So a rheumatologist would be who would treat you if you had lupus. And they just have to do the testing. So it sucks because it's all in a doctor's hands. You wouldn't be able to say, you know what, I have lupus. You would need a doctor to diagnose it. And it does get confused with other, many other illnesses that are very similar.
So you're not fully sure you have lupus. Like, all the symptoms match, but there's no 100% proof you have it.
Oh no, yeah, they tested me specifically for lupus, and they were able to confirm I do have lupus.
But how do they test you that you have it versus like all the other symptoms that I was explaining, that you could have fibromyalgia?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm terrible with names.
I'm not even sure I said it right, so don't worry. You know what? That's a good question. They do. I couldn't give you the exact correct answer, but I know the main thing they check when you do get, your blood work done is your ANA results, depending on that, and then there are other markers that the doctors look at that are specific to lupus. So that's how they were able to confirm, in my case, that I did have lupus. And I've also had like they've had checked, like, oh, maybe she also has this. That's how they, like, I have something else it's called Raynaud's disease, and you can have other illnesses that and still have it be the cause. Lupus is the cause. So it's so under researched that you can't say like this is a specific thing of like lupus, but a lot of things that I have came because I have lupus. So like the Raynaud's disease, that's where your blood doesn't flow good and you're out in the cold, and someone else could be like, I could be with someone else in the same temperature, same dressed the same, and then my hands will turn white first and then they turn purple, and that's because my blood just isn't flowing to my joints, my hands and my feet through that. I asked the doctor what is that. She goes, oh, a lot of people with lupus have that. Like, that's not an answer I want to hear, but I'm so used to hearing that now when I go to doctor's appointments that I'm just like, oh, thanks lupus. Like, here we go again.
Yeah, so you mentioned before that you were in a wheelchair and you lost like 60 pounds and lost all weight. So how did you get out of the flare then? Did the body just stop attacking you, or did you have to do something?
So they give me, it's called Prednisone. It's a steroid.
Yeah, it's
and
terrible.
Yes, it's at that time when I had that flare up, I wasn't taking, I think I was taking maybe like 10 milligrams of prednisone a day. When I was in the hospital, they put me at, first they had to do, because usually I will take a pill, and they were giving me IV prednisone. And then to be released, they were giving me 90 milligrams of prednisone. So I was on.
It's awful.
Yeah, I was doing, and it was the way that I got out of it was just a change of my medication, a change of my habits, because stress is a huge factor in having flare-ups, and I was extremely stressed. I was going through a divorce. Like you mentioned, I was in a domestic violence situation with my ex-husband, and he was just not a good person. So my stress level was here, and it should have been down here. So I had to change my medication. I had to change, my surroundings. I had to change some of my eating habits, and slowly, it did take a long time. It's not like I woke up one day and was like, I'm healed. So
we wish we could.
Yeah, right. I know. If there was a magic snap of the finger, I'd do it. But it was a process. It was a lot of ups and downs. I would say it took me at least like 4 years to get to where I felt comfortable again. And now it's like 6-7 years later, and I can say that I'm just not that same person. I have better habits now. So.
Well, I hope you weren't taking steroids for 4 years.
Well, actually, I'm still actually taking them to this day. I only take 1 milligram a day. Some days I won't. Some days I won't even take it at all. Just to see, like, because they are trying to get me completely off of the steroids. But sometimes I do need it. My goal is to finish this year with not taking it anymore.
Yeah, best of luck. Prednisone really sucks.
Yeah,
I guess it makes your body go haywire, and then
Yeah, and then I notice, like, when I take higher amounts of prednisone, my temper's short. I'm snacking in the middle of the night, but like snacking for that when I'm on prednisone is like a whole bag of Chips Ahoy or something. So, it's
like
not
some of the symptoms is insomnia, excessive hunger, sometimes not hunger.
Yeah.
You gain a lot of weight sometimes. Like you get more bloaty.
Yeah.
You become an asshole. Like that happens often.
That's a nice way to say it.
Yeah, like you don't notice until someone tells you. And then you seem angry all the time, like you actually feel angry. And then but it also sucks because when you're taking prednisone, you're also in a bad situation. So whatever you're experiencing it's like times 10. Yeah, it amplifies everything else, and it's a terrible combination. It helps a lot, but it's terrible side effects.
Yeah, and the insomnia, like I used to go like I could go like 24, 48 hours without sleeping, and I used to work, I had 2 jobs. Well, I worked overnight, so I would work until 4 a.m, come home, and when I'm supposed to be sleeping, I'm like, no, I could do, because I just wasn't tired because I was taking so much prednisone. And then even when I lost my job, I was still all night. I couldn't sleep. and my parents were telling me, you gotta turn off the phone, and insomnia is not just because you're on the phone. Insomnia is especially from medication, is because you literally cannot go to sleep.
No, you're wide awake. Like, it happened to me. Like, I was in school and I was up for 3 days, and then I I fell asleep at the worst time. I fell asleep during the Super Bowl. And it's like, okay, like, you just
That's when
passed out.
yeah.
But yeah, I was out for like 2 days, 3 days. I remember it'd be like 5 in the morning. I'll get like an hour of sleep, and then my alarm goes
Yeah,
off, and then you're like, okay, I guess I have to be up for the day. I don't know, just
yeah,
something crazy. It just turns on, and you're like, it's like you're on a cocaine binge or something. Like, you're on point,
yeah,
100%. You're super
yeah,
sharp, even after
yeah,
24 hours. It's like insane almost.
yeah. And then the moment you leave the house, you're like, I'm tired, and then you go back home and you're physically tired, but you can't go to sleep.
No, you're just like 100% like go, go, go.
Yeah, so
It's like the strangest, but yeah, bless
yeah,
all the people that have to take it. Like, it's horrible for you, so they don't want you to take it, but sometimes it's the only thing that really helps you feel better.
yeah, yeah.
So
So it's like a devil's advocate.
yeah. So you have both invisible illnesses and physical illnesses. So like symptoms would be like not feeling well, that you could maybe hide, that you can, but then you have symptoms like hair loss or being bound to a wheelchair that a lot more
Yeah,
noticeable. Did people treat
yeah,
you differently when they saw you something physically wrong versus saying you have joint pain, which is hard to understand if you're not
yes.
in the chronic world?
Yeah, and I mean, even with my own family, I would be on the outside. Everything looks okay. Going to work, taking care of my kids, but in the inside, I would be completely sick, and they would think I am making it up, or I just was being lazy, or whatever went through their head. And then when I got so sick, um, my hair was actually falling out. Like, I have all this hair now, but I had bald spots, and my I was so that's when the point when I went down to 110 pounds, and I looked like a skeleton. And that's when people were like, oh, you really are sick. And that's when like their whole attitude changed. And um just even when you go to the store, because when I started getting better, but I was still like using, those little scooters in the grocery stores.
Hmm.
I was using it, but because my joints were in so much pain I couldn't walk, people were so rude to me. Like I don't even understand. Like right now, it's crazy to me how people can be so mean to other people just because they don't see them like with a missing limb or something obvious, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then the difference between when you are physically like you can see like a rash or something wrong, then they're all of a sudden nice. So I just think it's weird how people are in the world sometimes.
You gotta get like a neck tattoo of a rash on your neck, so you're like 100%.
Right, or something. Like, I don't understand. So I try to even I try to, on my website I have t-shirts. I try to put like, I make lupus look good, or lupus warrior, lupus survivor, or just something just to bring like even the awareness. And that's why I really started my whole She's Got Lupus website, and I made it the Instagram, that, and just try to do. I had one event so far for lupus awareness, and I try to participate in as many lupus events like in my town that I can, just for that reason, because it's not something you would look at someone and say, oh, that's lupus.
No, it's a very invisible disease.
Yeah, yeah. So
I mean, it's also a pandemic, so it's also hard to fundraise because a lot of events are
yeah,
more popular when it's in person. That's the big
yeah,
challenge for
yeah,
all diseases, just to garner support online. I mean, it's easy to disseminate information online, but you don't really have that personal connection with them. It's kind of like
Yeah, and
everyone's the same.
yeah, they're just like, oh, I'll do this, but it's not. It doesn't hit the same as if it was in person. So
Exactly, it's that personal connection really helps a lot in terms of
yeah,
like more people
I
are
think
willing
so.
to donate and help when there's like a physical, emotional attachment to it versus just
Exactly.
reading a
Yeah.
script. It doesn't hit the same at all.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just hopeful that soon. I mean, here in San Diego, it's kind of opening back up. I mean, my event was outdoor, so that way people could come if they felt comfortable. And I did give an option, like if you don't feel comfortable coming, you can get the stuff and do it at home with us. But it's hopefully this next year is different, and we can
Yeah,
make
I hope
more
so too.
in person.
We got you gotta get money for all these diseases. There's so many rare ones out there that need a lot more funding.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's like all over the place. You don't even know
Yeah, so
um,
we're
what's
gonna
going
go a
on.
little bit different direction right now. So you did an
Yeah.
interview and you said that you had a lot of scar tissue on your lungs, that your lungs can't
Mhm.
expand fully, and you say it's at
Yeah.
60%. So you also mentioned you're also a good candidate for a lung transplant. So how did all the scar tissue form, and did you ever get that transplant?
Yeah. So I had really I back in high school, like 20 years ago, I did sports. I grew up playing with doing sports as a kid. Even with my oldest son, he's an athlete. I used to take him to the park and run around and we'd play like that. Now, what had happened was lupus. It, like I said earlier, it attacks your healthy organs. Lupus started attacking my lungs, and what it did is it caused scar tissue on my surrounding my lungs. So my lungs, where a normal person's lungs, they are able to expand like this. When you take a deep breath, like your lungs expand.
Mm-hmm.
Mine has the scar tissue limiting it. So rather than expanding to 100%, I'm only at 60%. So I have shortness of breath. I'm working on it. Like I use an inhaler daily. I use an inhaler if I get winded, and for me that's going.
Do you exercise with a spirometer?
No, no. So I did have. I don't know if that's what it is, but I did have a little breathing treatment that I used to have to do at home, um, and that helped me get back to being able to go upstairs without stopping every 2 steps. But I do still use my inhaler. I just limit my activities now. I try to go walking, and the lung doctor, at one point, he had told me 2 years ago, right before the pandemic, I had gone in. I do yearly the pulmonary function test where you sit in that box, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a chamber, and they have you breathing into the tube to see how hard you can breathe or how much oxygen you can fill your lungs with. And after that last appointment, he had told me that I was a good candidate because of my age for a lung transplant. He gave me two options. He said I could go the lung transplant route, or there was a procedure where they could scrape the scarring off your lungs. And that he said it's very invasive and there wasn't a guarantee that it would even help me. So that was an immediate no for me. And I didn't want to go the lung transfer or the lung, get a new lung because a transplant, because I figure there's so many other people that could probably use it before me because I'm still able to function. So as of right now, I actually have an upcoming pulmonary appointment in, I want to say, either December or January, where we're going to reevaluate and meet up about that again. But as of right now, I told him I'm okay on a transplant.
So do you feel different with your lungs? Like you say, you can't do much like exercise and you have a lower mobility lifestyle. So it is. Do you feel like you're just out of breath often, like, or is it harder to
Oh
breathe for
yeah.
you?
Oh yeah. Like me, if I'm cleaning the house, I'm taking more breaks than a normal person would if I am vacuuming because it's strenuous for me. So um, I feel like I don't need an oxygen tank, but I need my inhaler.
It's time to give your kids some chores.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Trust me, I do.
Yeah, you gotta use them for. So I want to know, like, so you mentioned that you're doing all the inhalers and stuff. So what medicine do you take to like basically function? Yeah, I can tell. I can probably gauge that the audience think that you're a dope person.
I take prednisone. I take plaquenil. I take the I don't know how to pronounce it. The hydrochlorothiazide. I take sertraline for my cause I have ADD and depression, and I take medication for my blood pressure, um, and I also do weekly injections of the Benlysta. So that's how I function,
Mm.
basically.
So they like fluctuate. So like maybe you have like worse days where you need more of something.
Um, no, not really. Like if I have a really, really bad, like I'm feeling my joints swelling up, then I'll take an extra prednisone, but I try not to deviate from what me and my doctors have agreed on.
Yeah, it's
If
crazy that
I
you're able to take so much and it can all like work together.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's so important for me to try to get off of my medication and just I'd like to function where a normal person can, but I know that if I tried that, I would it would all fall apart and I'd have to start all over again.
Of course, there. I mean, I don't know what your baseline is, but it seems like your baseline is decent enough that you can do most things that you want to do. You just have to take a lot of
Yeah.
breaks, and you don't want to deviate from that. Like it's difficult when you deal with chronic illness because like your life is still going on, and you don't want to worry
Mhm.
about your health all the time. So you rather have a
Right.
more consistent health and know what your limits are versus just fighting your body
Right.
like up and down. Like rather have a consistent, maybe lower baseline, but if it's consistent, it's more workable.
Yeah, and it's just little things that people wouldn't even think about, like the sun. When you have lupus, you're sensitive to the sunlight or even UV lights. So from like right now, I'm sitting in like a shaded area of my house,
Hmm.
and if I were to go outside, if I don't put sunblock or wear cover myself, then I will get a rash and then my joints swell up. So a trip we live in San Diego, biggest thing to do is go to the beach. I like going to the beach, but if I do go to the beach and say I want to spend a couple hours out there, when I come home, I'm going to have to just lay in bed for the rest of the day because I'm drained, and it'll probably take me a couple days to recover from that, just because I have lupus, and that's one of the things that I have to deal with, and just just a whole bunch of things like that I can't even like get into how much it affects my life, my day to day.
So I'm guessing every time you go out, even on shady days, you wear suntan lotion.
Yeah, I use a face cream with SPF. And then for my job, if I'm driving, because I drive around to visit patients, you don't even think about it. But when you're driving, one half of your body is going to be exposed to the sun. So I'm driving like with my arm behind my back or
Hmm.
something. I look goofy, but or I'm trying actually to get my windows tinted, like dark enough that I won't be bothered by the sun. But
I think
it's
in
just
some states it's like illegal that you can't tint
yeah,
like the front windows. But I'm curious now with you, will like they make an exception or like they can't fight for it?
Yeah, my rheumatologist did tell me that she would sign a paper because in California it is you can't drive. I want to say with a certain like 80% tin or something. I don't know the specifics. So
But any percentage would help you a lot.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I go out and I have suntan is like 90 SPF if I can find it, but it's super hard to find it.
Yeah, so I also know you have a controlled diet, so you can't have no red meat and you can have no bacon, which is terrible. So like, what is your diet then?
Well, I mean, I can have red meat. I just if I limit it, I've noticed when I do less, so I do so much better. I feel I have more energy. I feel more alert. Um, I do still have it. So when I when I did my best, when I felt my best, it was I was eating it once a week. I didn't do have any bacon. I limited my dairy. I wasn't drinking coffee. I started a new job, so I did fall off that wagon. I do have coffee every day, but I use like almond instead of regular cream. I use almond creamer, and juicing helps. Just more vegetables, more fruits. Those are all things that little things that help.
It seems like you kind of have like your life at most order as you can get it. Like you kind of feel like you know your body and you know your body so well that you kind of know your triggers and stuff, so you're able to just
Right.
survive. Like survive basically.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing with when you have any illness, I suggest you gotta learn as much as you can about it. You have to know when your body well enough to know, you know what, if when I ate this, I felt like crap after. Or when I went out and I stayed out past 10 and I felt like crap the next day. So you got to know your body well enough to know when things affect you so that you can make those changes.
Well, so I know you also do cerebral therapy. So how would that did that help you at all?
I also did what therapy?
Cerebral therapy, I think it's the one where you go into like a really cold chamber thing.
Oh, the yeah, I did that because my oldest son, he plays football and he was told it helps. I mean, he would get in a bathtub of ice water. So I was so I said, like, you know what, this is this looks cool if anything. And I did it and I mean it helps, but it's like a temporary help. It's not a constant thing, and according to the lady who ran the place, she said you do have to go back often to get it like the full benefit. And I just haven't gone back because I'm busy.
So
stuff
yes,
stuff
so
goes
is
on.
a thumb down for you?
I would say if you have like the extra money, extra time, because it does build up. I got a deal on Groupon, so I did. I was like, hey, let's go try it. But I wouldn't consistently go. I'll say that. But it felt nice.
Yeah. So for the audience that's watching this on YouTube, she's wearing a Lupus shirt and that's purple. But do you know
Yeah,
why they choose the color purple?
I did not. I did not know that.
Oh, well, I do because I did a lot of research. So the color purple they say is the combination of red, which signifies motivation, and blue, which signifies calmness.
Oh, well, that's good.
So I feel
Thank
like
you.
that kind of describes you though.
Yeah. Sometimes.
There's no good segue to do this. So you mentioned that you were in domestic violence situation, and
Yeah.
it's, and I know you're a huge advocate for that. So like, why do you think it happens so often?
I don't know why it happens so often. I know that because of some hidden reason, it's not so widely talked about. You look at the statistics. I mean, there's women almost every day in every country, and sometimes it's not even just women. Sometimes it's men, but they're being behind closed doors. They're either being physically or verbally abused, but they're almost ashamed to say, like, this is happening, because most of the time when people, hear about a domestic violence situation, it's like, well, why would they put themselves in that situation? Why did they deal with that? Instead of saying, you know what, maybe they need help, it's always judgment first. So why people get to that point where they feel like they need to berate someone or hit someone, that I can tell you.
Yeah, it's kind of a difficult situation because there's two parties. But so most of the time it's male inflicting the harm. So you could say one is that who's ever rating these guys are not rating them well. So that's one thing.
Right.
And then the other thing is the women that, like, I've been not in domestic, but in mental abuse. Like, it's easy to say, hey, like, you can get out when you're looking on the outside, but when you're in it, you don't really like see it that much, and you
Right.
you're always wishing, like, oh, it's not that bad, or you like give some excuse to yourself, and then like when you break up or you get out, and then you look back and like, wow, this is really different. But like, I think to me, I think like the best advocacy you can do is to push the women, because they have to know the signs of it and say like, this isn't right, and this is not a relationship at all, and like you should get out. But I can understand how difficult it is to get out, because like in a normal relationship, like the man makes more money so they can rent. So like a woman can't just go, I don't like you anymore, and just move away, because maybe they just can't afford it.
They
like so many
financially
variables.
can't.
There's so many variables that involve that it gets really hard to do, and easy to say from the outside, but when you're in it, it's really difficult. And I think the best thing is to advocate for the women and give them power and say, this isn't right, like, just get out, because you're just hurting yourself even longer. And I'm sure you feel that it's hard at first, but like in the long run, you're so much better off.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like,
I mean, you can be where you have it might be you don't have a self-worth, and you don't realize that you actually deserve better, and that's one reason women stay in these relationships. Or you didn't have a good example growing up, like you think someone yelling at you is normal. So I mean, obviously one way is you got to educate your kids and show them better, and that was the main reason why I wanted to leave, is because I wanted to be around for my kids, and I wanted them to have a better example for them growing up, because I have all boys. I mean, I'm not worried about a woman hitting them. I'm worried about them being in a relationship where a woman's talking down on them, or verbally abusive, or if it does where it get physical, like I want them to know that they deserve better, and they shouldn't be in those relationships.
yeah, it's a weird concept, because you have like no strength of leaving, but like to get out requires so much strength to do that. And it's
Yeah.
like you have to like gather all your strength and just like commit, leave, and then commit to it, and it takes so much strength and courage.
Yeah, it's hard. It took me some time to build up to even say I need help, and help me get out of this situation. I'm tired of it. And some people are scared to do that, and I would know I was scared. I didn't want anyone to judge me. I didn't want to be alone in that decision. Like, I wanted to know me and my kids would be okay. So it took a while to build up to that. You need confidence, you need strength, and you need assurance from the people that are around you.
Yeah, I just also curious. Like I mentioned, you're a single mom raising three boys. Like, how in the hell
Hmm.
are you able to do all of that while everything else is going on in your life?
I had a very strong village behind me. My parents, after I left my ex-husband, my parents let me move back home. And when I was sick, my mom became and my dad became their surrogate parents. They were helping me take them um, to school or to sports things, and still taking me to doctor appointments. They were, if I had to be hospitalized, my parents were watching my boys at home and they would bring them to visit me at the hospital. So, and then if it wasn't my parents, I have a huge family that supported me and helped me and took in my kids as their own. So that's the only reason that I was able to do it.
How are your kids handling you? Like, do they like old enough to understand like what you're going through? Like, you're being sick. Because your situation is very unique to most families that, you're sick, you're living with your parents. Like, do they understand what's happening here, or are they still too young to?
I mean, my oldest is 17. He knows. My middle son is 11, and he gets it. My 7-year-old, he's still like, hey, let's go do this, and I'm like, I can't, can't do that. But when I am sick and like they know, and they actually are a huge help um, for me. So that's it. That's a good thing that I have now.
Yeah, I think it comes from a place of understanding, but I can also
Right.
understand how they can get like upset, and, like this kid's mom is taking them to practice, and you can't leave because you're dealing with your own shit basically,
Mhm.
and you can't
Yeah.
do anything. So I can feel it could be a place of misunderstanding or not understanding how like deep your situation is. 'Cause it's so
Yeah.
unique that you can't just even if you explain this is like that you mentioned with adults, even if you explain it to adults, they don't understand it. Like you
Yeah.
expect a kid to understand it when they have a whole life ahead of
Exactly.
them. So I
Yeah,
can
and especially like if they're like, "Oh, can you take me to so and so's birthday party?" And I physically couldn't. Like it, you can get so much. I used to get mom guilt. I call it all the time, where I would feel guilty. Like if I wasn't sick, I could do so much more with and for my kids. But that's just a rabbit hole you don't want to go falling down into, because then that just fuels the depression fire, and then you're just like sitting in the dark, just depressed because you can't do anything. But then you get sicker because you're depressed, and then it's like a continuous um, cycle that you don't want to get yourself into. So just my kids are, they have their days where they want to do something, but they know also like, my mom is sick, let me help out.
decide. Yeah, I just want to say that much shit that you're going through. When you do fundraiser, you're always continually helping others and supporting them. So commendable. Like you're one of the most amazing women that I'll ever be. You're like such a badass
Thank you.
dealing with everything. It before I take a mic away from you, is there anything you want to promote or say, or the mic is yours?
At this time, no, I'm just working on my website, she'sgotlupus.com, and I have my lupus awareness shirts and gear that's on there, and just working on my blog and giving more content. And I'd love to do more fundraising events, not just for lupus, but for mental health. This is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, so expect to see some stuff about that, and also for domestic violence awareness.
Yeah, so all the information will be in the description below. Thank you so much for coming here. Thank you everyone for listening and watching, and I'll see everyone next time. Bye.